productivity remains incredibly inconsistent over the last 20 years because we've consistently expected people to care before we've done the rigorous work to make sure they feel cared for and make sure they know the difference that they make.
When I went to business school, everything was all about finance, accounting, monetary policy, basically all the stuff that I forgot later. And I might have had a class that touched on what some people call soft skills, but the ability to help people find purpose or meaning in their work, to understand how to look out for a team's well-being, and to show people that they mattered, that just wasn't part of the curriculum. But a new body of research is showing just how critical these types of leadership skills are for actually achieving that return on investment and other hard results that we're held accountable for. Welcome to Work Better, a Steelcase podcast where we think about work and ways to make it better. I'm your host, Chris Congdon, and this is part 2 of my conversation with researcher and author Zach Mercurio. Zach wrote the new book called The Power of Mattering: How Leaders Can Help Create a Culture of Significance. And if you missed part 1, go back and give that a listen. Today, we're going to pick up this conversation where we left off, understanding how leaders can notice, affirm, and show people that they matter. I hope you enjoy. Zach, I'm so glad to get an opportunity to speak with you on this issue of mattering because I think it's one that people maybe haven't really thought about before. And I'd like to start out by just defining what mattering means, because I think we hear a lot of words in the workplace now about belonging and inclusion, and mattering is a little different take on that. So can you just explain to us, for the audience that caught the first part of this series or who might be joining us fresh today, like, what does mattering mean to you in the workplace?
So belonging, right, is feeling welcomed and accepted into a group and connected to a group as a whole. Inclusion is being invited and able to take an equal active role in that group. But mattering is feeling significant to the people in that group.
Right.
I could feel like I belong in this conversation. I'm definitely included in this conversation because I'm able to contribute. But I may not feel seen by you or heard by you or feel like you can name my unique gifts or that you remind me that I'm needed. So mattering is the experience of feeling significant to the people around you. And why that nuance is so important is because mattering is a survival instinct, meaning the first thing we did as human beings was we actually reached out to be significant to someone. If we weren't significant to someone enough so that they'd keep us alive, we would be in big trouble. So that instinct to matter turns into this fundamental need to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel valued as we grow up, go to school, go to work. And when that need is met, when we do feel that people notice us, they pay attention to us, they remember the details of our lives, they invite our voice out, they hear us, they value us and the uniqueness we bring, and they remind us how we're needed. That's when we experience what psychologists call mattering.
I just want to say it back to you to make sure that I'm really tracking with the difference. So I feel a sense of belonging in my work here because I feel like I'm part of a team and that, I feel like that team welcomes me into our group. I feel a sense of inclusion because my opinion might be asked or sought after, but I feel meaning when someone demonstrates to me, like my leader demonstrates to me that the work that I'm doing is actually making a difference for the organization. Is that right? Am I tracking?
That's right. Yes. Someone else showing you the evidence of your significance. And this is also important as well, because someone may say, well, Zach, can't I believe that I matter on my own?
Right.
I build my own self-esteem, my own self-worth. Yes, you can believe that you matter on your own, but it takes someone else to show you how you matter.
Yeah. So I would like to talk about 3 things that you've identified in your work that are ways that, whether I'm a leader or a good team member, that I can be doing to show people that they matter. So we've already talked about noticing. That was the first one. Maybe you could just quickly remind us what noticing looks like.
Yeah, yeah. Noticing is the practice of paying attention to the details, ebbs, and flows of someone's life and their work, and then offering them a proactive action to show them that you're paying attention. And that's that first part of seeing somebody. Hearing somebody is digging into the meaning and feeling behind someone's words, having those skills to help someone feel understood, and inviting their voice out. The reason why noticing is a foundation of mattering, it's like the elemental factor that determines whether we feel that we matter, which is why I have it coming before affirmation and showing people how they're needed, is because noticing is required for trust. We can care about people from afar, but to care for people means we have to get up close. You cannot care for something you don't notice or understand. Noticing is the relational groundwork of truly seeing a person, truly hearing a person, so that then you can affirm them and show them how they're needed.
Yeah. So let's talk about affirming then. What does that look like?
Yeah, I like, let's like do this by omission of what it's not.
Okay.
Yeah, because I like that. Because I think that we hear words like appreciation and recognition a lot. Appreciation is important. It's showing general gratitude for who someone is, for someone's presence. You can appreciate someone in an employee appreciation day. You can appreciate someone through an awards banquet. You can show it symbols of appreciation.
Sure.
Recognition is showing gratitude for what someone does. So it's elevating someone's work or their performance, right, through awards or kudos or whatever it is. But affirmation is showing someone how their unique gifts make a unique difference. And this is what's very important about this, because you can appreciate someone through a symbol. You can recognize somebody through a symbol. What I mean is you could give them a promotion.
I can give them a raise.
You give them a raise.
I can say in a meeting in front of everybody, what a great job Kiara did in that project.
Yep. You can give them a front row parking spot. You could give them an employee, if they still do that, employee of the month award. Yeah. But those things are all inanimate objects. So they cannot actually value a person. They are symbols of value, but like money can't value a person. It can't do the act of valuing. And that's what affirmation is. The root word of affirmation comes from the Latin word affirmare, which means to firm up or make stronger. And what I love about that is that, like we talked about, any belief requires the environment to feed back the evidence of that belief, to keep it going, keep it strong. When we're showing somebody their significance, we're showing them the evidence of their significance. And it strengthens their belief that they matter. I'm reminded of, I was in an auditorium working with teachers, and there's this large school, and I asked them to think about a time in their work when they most felt that they mattered. And there was a woman who I noticed in the middle of the room, she turned to the person next to her and was having a side conversation very loudly. And then there was kind of some laughter, but she looked a little bit upset. And I said, "Hey, what's going on? Would you mind sharing with the rest of the group?" And she goes, "I don't think I can think of a moment." She goes, "I'm just in
where she
felt like it mattered.
Affirmed?
Yeah, felt like she mattered." And she goes, "I've been a processor. I do the paperwork, and that's it. Basically, I'm just in processing." And she said that word "just." And what happened in that room was really remarkable. There was a teacher on the other side of the room who stood up and said, "Janine, like I would not even have a class of students without you." Mm. And then someone else stood up and was like, "Yeah, what are you talking about? Like, you're so good and you're so kind and you're so fast with turning around grade reports and reports we need. Like literally students wouldn't be graduating and getting their diplomas printed if it wasn't for you." And in that room, like, it was amazing. She saw that she mattered around her. She saw the evidence of her significance. That is affirmation, when you can see how you make a difference right in front of you.
So if, handing out an award or a raise or whatever, I'm thinking about this as leadership coaching. For a lot of people listening, you're probably in a leadership role, or at least on a team. What would be some other examples of ways that we could affirm somebody if we're not going to hand them a completion certificate or something like that?
Yeah, the first thing is to collect and tell real stories of that person's significance.
Real stories. Okay.
Show them the downstream impact of their work. You can do this in a number of ways. There was a facilities and maintenance leader that I worked with for the National Park Service, and he used to go around and he takes photos of projects that the team completed that week. So if park visitors were walking across our bridge, or if there was a trail that was completed, or if there was a bathroom that had a shorter line because a bathroom was repaired and opened, he'd take a picture of it. And he would send an email every Friday that just the subject line said, "Look what you did." And he would just attach the photos.
Oh, that's cool.
And he is one of the teams with the highest morale and lowest turnover in the Park Service. And, we've gone and studied him. He always says to me, "I give people the photographic evidence that they matter so they can never question if they matter."
That's cool.
Right? I love that. So think about how you can collect and tell stories of people's significance. We often, for example, do client satisfaction surveys.
Sure.
Satisfaction, it does not emotionally compel people. Knowing how satisfied someone was, knowing the impact that they made on somebody's life and the difference they made, that's what emotionally inspires people. So find ways to collect and tell stories of the work's significance. It doesn't have to be on an end user. It can be on a team member that you noticed. Maybe someone said something in a meeting and it changed the demeanor of a team member, or someone's input on yourself. Like that is a real way to do that. So collect and tell stories of significance.
Okay. So then the next step is about showing people they're needed, right? Like that's after I've noticed them and affirmed them, I'm showing them they're needed. So help me understand the difference between what we just talked about with affirming.
Yeah. So I'll go back because I want to give another tip for listeners is that, we often say thank you and good job a lot as well. But just saying a blanket thank you doesn't really psychologically do much to somebody because people have this inherent need for uniqueness, to see their uniqueness relative to others. That's one of the reasons why just getting generic feedback actually can demotivate us and create some dissonance. Well, they said thank you, but they didn't really name anything unique that I did. I could have been anybody.
Sure.
So one thing that we found is that there are 4 components of what's called meaningful gratitude. That whenever you say thank you, you should be able to describe specifically the setting of when and where whatever you're thanking the person for occurred within. So, for example, at the beginning of this podcast interview, you helped prepare me for this conversation, right? At the beginning of this podcast interview. It's very clear. We know that you're there. You know that I noticed that you were there. I'm not just saying thank you at 1:00 every day. But then the second is describe the behavior. So you prepared me for our upcoming interview. And then 3, name the gifts the person used. And this is very important. So every human being brings us at least 4 gifts every day. Their strengths, what they love and what they're good at. Their purpose, how they uniquely impact the team, the people around them. Their perspective, how only they see the world because of their position, their life story, and then their wisdom, what only they have learned, that what only they can teach us, right? So name their gifts. So for example, at the beginning of this podcast interview, you helped prep for the conversation, but you were very intentional and very creative about how you wanted to have this conversation really build upon our previous conversation. And that intentionality, that creativity, and then show them the impact they make, the 4th piece, made this conversation go much smoother. And if just one person, right, leaves this conversation, says thank you to someone in a way that reveals their gifts, and that person has never heard that they have those gifts, it could change the trajectory of someone's career. So I just want to thank you, Chris.
And I just want to say that I really value your perspective. So if I didn't say that, shame on me, because that was why we thought this was such an important conversation. Again, because I do think it's tapping into something that we're just not aware of. We don't think about it on a day-to-day basis. And so I want to delve into that a little bit, because I do think people are under a lot of pressure right now to be more productive. For example, I hear this all the time. And you and I have talked about this issue that we keep hearing about: engagement, loneliness, a lot of different well-being factors. But productivity is one that I hear a lot from business leaders, that they're just really worried. And so when I think about, like, okay, if I'm worried about productivity and how much, work I can get out of you, Zach, like what I can get you to do today, then I'm just wondering how that gels with me taking the time to go, but Zach, I appreciate the insights that you gathered from your research, because you're able to give us, again, kind of a different view on the world. So help me understand, or maybe we can coach our listeners about how do you marry up this need for productivity with this need to demonstrate people matter?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that they're not only are they not mutually exclusive, that you need one for the other.
Okay, talk more about that.
You can't have productivity without mattering.
If I don't feel like I matter, I'm not going to make the same effort, right?
Right. Think about the last time you cared about something and simultaneously felt uncared for. Think about the last time you worked really hard on a project and you thought it was futile.
Okay.
Right. So you can't have one without the other. The problem is that people don't realize that it takes work and skill to do the human relational work to build that sense of mattering. And that's what we've overlooked. We've tended to leave it up to chance. For example, you can metaphorically, I guess, raise your hand right now if you've ever gone to a session on how to give positive feedback to someone.
I'm not actually raising my hand because I don't think I've ever, yeah.
Right. No,
yeah.
me neither. Me neither. I deliver them, but I've never been to it. I've never seen it, right? Raise your hand if you had a budget meeting and you had a training on how to create psychological safety, and they were both overlapped and you need to cancel one to get more time. How many of you would cancel the psychological safety meeting? Honestly, right?
Okay.
So over and over and over again, we've left the human skills that cultivate the energy needed to produce up to chance, and we've devalued them. And this is why we're in the place that we're in, where productivity remains incredibly inconsistent over the last 20 years, because we've consistently expected people to care before we've done the rigorous work to make sure they feel cared for and make sure they know the difference that they make, right? Productivity has two components: quality and quantity. So quantity is how much someone does, how much someone produces.
How many widgets I produce, right?
And to achieve quantity, you need energy. And energy is just code word for motivation in psychology. And the most important way to compel motivation is called psychological meaningfulness. And that is knowing that I and what I do matters. So the second part of productivity is quality. And what do you need for quality? You need care. Someone needs to care about what they're doing.
Yeah, if you don't care, anything is good enough.
And people won't care because you give them a paycheck. People will be satisfied if you give them a paycheck. Mm-hmm. But a satisfied employee is not a motivated employee.
Right. Yeah.
Very important. So I think it's important for leaders to understand that taking a long view on productivity and doing the work and taking the time to cultivate the relational groundwork, making sure people feel cared for, making sure they know how they're making a difference, will result in more sustained energy and sustained care that results in the quantity and quality you want from productivity.
So I'm curious what you think about how we could do a better job, those of us who are thinking about physical environments, of creating places where it's more likely that people will have these kinds of conversations, the conversations that begin with, if it wasn't for you. I mean, I know you can have that conversation anywhere, but...
Yeah, well, I think having spaces that actually remind you of your significance is important in terms of the design of the actual space. One of my favorite examples was when NASA was launching their moon missions, and John F. Kennedy went to go to a space center to launch the Apollo missions, and he said to a janitor, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And the janitor very calmly said, "Oh, I'm putting a person on the moon."
Yeah,
and
cool.
It was so cool. But Andrew Carton at the Wharton School did an archival study of NASA's environment during that time. And he took pictures of NASA facilities. He took pictures of meetings minutes. He took pictures of agendas. And he studied what NASA managers did to get a workforce of 300,000 people to believe so deeply in what they were doing that a janitor could just calmly say, "Oh, I'm putting a person on the moon." One of the things in their environment they had on all the blackboards at NASA, they had what was called a ladder to the moon. And they drew it where every group could see, every time they came in every day, they could see the tasks they were working on that month. Then they could see a tangible, measurable objective on the next rung of the ladder that task was needed for. Then they saw a tangible, measurable objective that objective was needed for, all the way up to putting a person on the moon by the end of the decade to advance science. And what I love about that is that was an environmental reminder constantly. And it wasn't a value on the wall. It wasn't a mission statement on the wall. It was measurably, here's how what you're doing today is needed on the wall. So I think there are some creative ways visually that we can remind people of their significance. I also think there are ways that we can connect people with the people they serve more. Like, for example, one of the things I see often is that there's like, especially if you're in a customer facing industry,
Right.
there's like the interface with the customer, and then there's all the people in the back.
Uh-huh.
Right? I would like to see spaces where there's more contact between everybody in the organization and customers and users moving in and out of that space. Because, for example, Adam Grant at the Wharton School finds just having one contact with a beneficiary of the work that you're doing can increase motivation upwards of 400% in experimental studies.
Absolutely.
So having some more of that space where customers, behind the scenes workers are interfacing is very important for helping people feel affirmed. I think we mentioned this last time. I also think like distance is very important to think about. We talked about the long conference tables.
And the degree of formality.
Yeah. Getting people literally together, because one of the things that's important is mattering. The currency of mattering is attention and time. And we're more likely to perceive someone's paying attention to us when we perceive they're close to us.
When there's some proximity.
Proximity. Sure. So making sure spaces are conducive to when somebody leaves a meeting room, is there a space right outside the meeting room with two chairs facing each other, comfortable chairs? So that if I notice you're frustrated in that meeting, the environment prompts me to say, hey, let's have a seat and just talk about this real quick.
Yeah.
If you think like about all the things that we talked about in the last two episodes, this episode and that episode, then you think, what in my environment would trigger somebody to do this right now? It really helps from a design perspective, because I just was thinking about that. Coming out of a room, you have people who are just discussing something intense. Right after that, is there some space for them to sit down instead of just walk back to their cubes?
Yeah. This is something we do very intentionally, where we think about meetings not only for, how you arrive at a meeting and what experience you have beforehand, but then afterward. A lot of times we all talk about the meeting after the meeting. Are you creating a place for somebody to do that, or creating a place for somebody to decompress even for a minute? Sometimes you come out of intense meetings and you need a minute to gather your thoughts. Like we could begin to create those kinds of spaces that can either create those interactions or even just value people by acknowledging what they need as human beings to be able to do their work.
Can I add one thing to this?
You can.
One of the biggest barriers to doing these behaviors is what's called automatic attention.
Automatic attention. Tell us.
Automatic attention. It's the thing that allows you to brush your teeth without thinking about it, but it gets a grip on relationships as well.
Ooh.
So the more we see the same people every day in the same place,
yes,
the more your brain goes on autopilot. So the one-on-one's the same, the meeting starts the same, even getting feedback is routine. We also the closer we are to somebody, like the more we see them, the less interested we tend to get in them.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's experiments that have been done that if I had you go and I had you get directions from a stranger, and then I had you go and get directions somewhere from a spouse or partner or someone you know really well, you would exhibit more attentive cues to the stranger, ask more questions to the stranger than you would to the person you quote unquote know really well. And that's because of automatic attention. It's called the closeness communication bias. So the reason why I bring this up when it comes to space is one of the best ways to get out of that is to switch up where, when, and how you're interacting with people. So if you always interact with a specific person in a specific place in the office, saying to someone, hey, let's go meet over here.
Right.
But it's a comfortable place. Let's go meet in the library up front with near the books. Let's go for a walk. Your brain will have to jolt out of the automatic attention. So I mention that because having a variety of spaces that serve the function of a variety of functions, one-on-one meetings, group meetings, is very important.
That makes so much sense. It is hard for me to notice and affirm you and let you know that you're needed if I'm on like autopilot. And so breaking out of that it can be an aid. It can help me from falling into kind of that automatic mode.
Yeah.
So, Zach, you joining me today helped my day at work feel a little bit better for sure. And I think it's going to help a lot of our listeners feel the same way. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a great conversation.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
The number one worker complaint today is a lack of privacy. This spring, we have new tools and resources to help solve this urgent need using community-based design principles. Learn how to create a better focused, less stressed, and more productive team in the new Work Better magazine. Get your free copy at steelcase.com/WB magazine.
So Work Better is now dropping in your feed every other week. Please remember to follow us and to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And visit us at steelcase.com/research to sign up for our weekly newsletter about workplace research, insights, and design ideas that are delivered right to your inbox. Thanks again for being here, and we hope your day at work tomorrow is just a little bit better. Thanks to everyone who helps make Work Better podcast possible, including our producers Rebecca Charbowski, Stav Kontis, Chiara Licari, Branda Lasik, and Katie Pace. Creative direction is by Aaron Allison. Editing and sound mixing is by Soundpost Studios. Technical support comes from Mark Caswell, Sean McManaman, and Jose Jimenez. Is by Areli Ariano and Jordan Marks.